episode of Between You and Me. It is Alex, and we are here with our second to last episode of this season. Sad, so sad that we only have a short period of time left together, but it's okay because I think we've gotten a lot of good, juicy episodes this season, and we were able to really delve into subjects that I feel like I haven't talked much about. Now, if you watched/listened to last week's episode, I talked about resolutions. I talked about how to achieve these without this impending anxiety, and following the same trend of like the new year and advice given within the new year, I wanted to talk about things that are applicable to us in our 20s and to people in this same age range and or just life experience. I feel like you could be younger or older and still experiencing the same things if you're in the same category or era of life, let's say. And I want to talk about the pieces of advice that people give that I don't necessarily agree with. This is an interesting topic because I think advice is so broadly and what's the word when like you don't actually ask for it? Like unsolicited advice, basically. I think, and I do it too. I'm talking to you guys, giving you advice based on, for the most part, a lot of people not asking me. They're just ideas I come up with myself. But then in the same breath, I do also answer your guys' questions and give advice based on that. But unsolicited advice is so broad, whether it be coming from your parents, your older family members, people on social media, your friends. Sometimes in some ways, people are giving advice very commonly that aren't always the best practices, in my opinion. So this might be a little controversial, but probably not. I feel like I always say that and it always tends to be pretty tame. But also, I think in each example I give you, there's truth to each of them, but the overarching message gets skewed, and that's why I don't necessarily agree with these pieces of advice. So I've gathered some things that I think are really common, some things that I've heard in my lifetime, whether that be from people on social media, from, parents, from older people in my life, like I said, and what I actually think about these pieces of advice and how I would shape this to be a better piece of advice to give you in your 20s during this time frame. I think it's relative to the new year because it's important to kind of go in with a better mindset than you had in the previous year. Does that make sense? So for those of you who are new here, don't forget to subscribe and go over and watch the episodes at Between You and Me Pod on YouTube, and then go and follow at Between You and Me Podcast on Instagram, where I give you guys updates and post occasionally over there. Okay, cool. Also, if you're completely new, I have my main Instagram and YouTube, which is just Alex Adams. You'll be able to find it when you type that in the search bar. Okay, cool. So the first piece of advice that I think a lot of people give, I've seen it a lot on social media. I also feel like traditional parents, traditional families and cultures will really instill this piece of advice into their kids or people, like the youth. And that piece of advice is, it's okay to hate your job and you should just separate it from your life and your happiness. Okay, so here's where the controversial thought process comes in, because in certain scenarios, this is something that is necessary when it is a situation of sink or swim type of thing, and you just need to get money in your pockets, you need to get food on your table, this advice is applicable. But if we're talking to a group of people who have the luxury of being inspired, being creative, being, in involved or stimulated by the job that they have, I think that this is dookie advice. I think a lot of parents who want their children to achieve really, high expectations and live up to some sort of dream that they might have had for themselves, this will be something that is like really instilled, and it can be harmful to a certain extent. I also saw a TikTok that was talking about how you need to separate your job from the rest of your life. You just go in, clock in, and come back and pay attention to the happiness outside of your job and, focus your energy there. See, the hard thing about this, and what makes this such a controversial and complex topic, is that it's really difficult to find something that gives you that excitement, that you have passion about, that is more than just a job or is not something that you hate. A lot of people focus on that financial stability, on stability in general, getting that career position and focusing on that and growing within that career. But what I believe is better advice is find something that interests you. It doesn't have to be something that is your creative passion. That can be a hobby. That can be something that doesn't provide income. It doesn't have to be something that is so utterly inspiring that it, fulfills you every single day, because that's a really high expectation to live up to, and chances are you'll be searching and searching and searching for the remainder of your life before you find something that really checks every box and is exactly what you want. So finding something that interests you, something that you don't hate necessarily, but you don't have to adore. Something in that middle ground where you find you can grow within it, you can learn more about it, you are good at it, you're interested in how it works, you're interested in, what it can bring you in your future. And I think that that's a way more acceptable expectation to have when it comes to your career. I want you to take it in the idea of like nothing needs to be perfect. You have time to keep exploring, keep finding things that interest you. Like I said, having hobbies that you can work towards this layer of more excitement and passion and things like that. And finding joy in the present and the day-to-day of life and feeling gratitude for having a job, point blank period, So if there is a job that you hate out there, that's totally okay. If you're working that job that you hate, it's okay. It's not bad for you to be working that job, but don't settle for that just because you think that that's the expectation that we're all supposed to live in. If that's your only choice, it's a different story, obviously. But if it's your choice to stay somewhere that you hate just because you think that that's where you need to be, it's not necessarily the truth, in my opinion. Okay, the next piece of advice that I think that a lot of people in their 20s will say and or receive is don't date seriously and just have fun. Another controversial one. Like I said, there's truth to each side, but it's the way in which people say it and the lengths that people will go to stay single that I don't agree with. I think that it is so lovely to be young and to be in love and to be in a relationship, if that's the case and that's the situation that you're in. So don't let people stray you away from looking for that, because it's really fun. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in that boat, but like I was single as well in my 20s, and yeah, sure, like you have fun and you enjoy and you don't have to worry about, fulfilling a role by any means, but there's so much beauty in both situations, in, having this solitude and focusing on your independence. But then there also is that beauty in being in a relationship, fulfilling the role of a partner, caring for another person, feeling like you're in a partnership. And don't feel like you need to wait until you're ready to get married before you start looking for a relationship seriously, because you might be pushing away a situation, a person that is meant to be in your life at this point in time. And it could cause a lot of pain, honestly, because it's natural to feel like you want to be with another person. I think that that's the way I think that we were hardwired as people. So if you're pushing away that like natural instinct just because you feel like you need your 20s to be by yourself, because people love to romanticize that. And I don't think that's a bad thing, okay? But if you're wanting to be in a relationship, but you're listening to that advice just because you see other people having so much fun when they're single and enjoying their lives and doing whatever the hell they want to do, that doesn't mean that you can't explore and have that solitude and independence while you're in a relationship. And I think being in a relationship, a good relationship, actually boosts you to heal, grow, and be a better version of yourself than you would by yourself. That's my opinion, because I think that that's what I've seen in my own life. I also see it in my boyfriend's life and how he was prior to meeting me. And I think that there's so much growth in a relationship in the short time frame. Like 2 years isn't that long when you think about it in the grand scheme of things, versus the life that he had when he was single, and same with me. And so much growth happens with another person who is able to help you grow. So basically, what I'm trying to say here is there is no rush to be in a relationship, okay? Not what I'm trying to say, but there also is no pressure to build up this example of a perfect relationship and wait until you're all the way ready and have like a chunk of your 20s by yourself. It's not needed. We don't need to find ourselves for 10 years in order to be ready for a relationship, is my point. You can be open, be willing to be in a relationship, look around, browse, find out who you connect with, who you don't, learn about people, and then still also have fun when you're in a relationship. It's bad advice when it's taken super literally. That's why I classify these as bad advice. Anyways, here's a really good one. Here's a really, really good one. And I've heard this so many times, which is funny because it's like, why would people say this? But anyways, you're young and you don't need to worry about your health. Who invented this topic? Who invented that sentence? I've literally countless times have heard oh, you don't need to worry about that yet. You don't need to worry about your sugar intake. You don't need to worry about, what you eat. You don't need to worry about, doing these checkups, doing these, this, that, the next. Now, there's a fine line between having the hypochondriac tendencies, which I had a phase in my life during COVID where I really, really was so, I think a lot of us were very hyperfixated on our health and very nervous about it. At that time, I understand why someone might have given me that advice, because they kind of just wanted me to relax. Hey, you're young, don't worry. But when it comes to your overall health, when it comes to what you eat on a day-to-day, how you take care of your body, your mental, physical health as well, it's very, very important. If anything, when you create habits, when you create ways of living at our age, in our 20s, then you're able to create this pattern, this commitment to something that hopefully will allow you to continue to focus on your health for many more years. It's almost like whatever you do now will benefit you in 10 years, and whatever you do in 10 years will benefit you for the next 10. So right now, think about how you're taking care of yourself, how you want to change that, and then start doing that and focusing on that now, because there's no time like the present. First of all, we don't know how long we're going to be around for. It's the truth. Second of all, whatever we do now will have a great, great, great impact on what we do in the future. That means if you're vaping, if you're smoking, if you're doing anything that's affecting your heart and your lungs, right now that might not affect you. 10, 15, 20 years, it probably will. If you're eating crap every single day and your metabolism is amazing right now because you're young, 10, 15, 20 years, you're going to see the impact that it makes on your body, not just aesthetically, but also internally. This can also make an impact on your mental health. What you consume, how your body feels will affect your mental. Like, it's all so interconnected, and it's something that has been a goal of mine and still continues to be, is to take very good care to the best of my ability of my physical health so that I can be the best version of myself in the future. Because your physical health will manifest in so many ways. So why not take care of it now when you're able, you know? That's why I tell my boyfriend to stretch and focus on mobility. I have a boyfriend that goes to the gym a lot. I go to the gym like once or twice a week. 3 times in a good week. Which I've slowed down on, but that's only because I've gotten so busy that it's like actually hard for me. Before, I was working from home every day of the week. It was like really simple. But regardless, besides the fact, I tell him to stretch and work on his mobility, because if you're lifting weights 5 times a week, yeah, you're going to have big, strong muscles. You're going to look great. But are you going to be able to touch your toes in 15 years? Are you going to be able to bend over? Are you going to be able to put your arms up here? You know what I mean? It's actually important. All right, the next piece of advice that I think that is taken out of context, and I don't necessarily agree with it, which I might have talked about this before, but I can't honestly put my finger on it if I did, but is if he wanted to, he would. Now, I'm not extremely sure if someone would classify this as advice, but I think we can, because it's so potent. There's probably a better word for that, but it's so like repeated on social media, and people will give you that in a sense of like, hey, if he wanted to, he would, and he's not doing it, so he doesn't like you. He doesn't like you, doesn't care about you, he doesn't, feel any shape, form, or way about you. But I'm here to tell you, there's levels to it. There is levels to it. If you communicate something, if you are open to receiving anything back, if you fulfill what they want and you're giving reasonable expectations and then they don't do it, that's where we have a problem. If you're dreaming of something, if you saw something on social media, if you are reflecting on the ways in which he or she, I guess, but in this example, we'll say he doesn't fulfill X, Y, and Z based on zero communication, based on zero expectations being explained to each other, then this piece of advice is basically pointless, because what you're asking there is for a man to be hyper focused on you 24/7, which trust me, in an ideal world, we would totally want that. But don't you want him to be focused on his career, on himself, on doing better, on, hanging out with his friends, having his own life? Because if that weren't the case, then you wouldn't be able to do that. With him having his own life, with him being, splitting his time between you and his own responsibilities, he's not 24/7 thinking about ways to, do grand gestures or, surprise you with certain things or do something out of the ordinary for you, which sometimes is disappointing, yes, because sometimes I'm even guilty of like, oh, he's late to come over. Like maybe he's coming over with a bouquet of flowers and then he shows up empty-handed and he was actually late because he was taking a shower. It happens. But I have really learned throughout my relationship to be expressive about what my expectations are. And even in that situation, if someone doesn't meet your expectations once in a while, or if they disappoint you, to not hold it against them and to not put them in this box of like, oh, you never do things for me. You're never like this. You're never like that. Because I think at the end of the day, that is not going to make them want to do it. Shaming someone for not making you feel good, for not meeting your expectations is never going to make someone want to do it. Because if you put yourself in those shoes, and if your boyfriend or whoever was like constantly telling you, hey, you never do this for me, you never do that for me, you never do blah, 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 you're going to be like, okay, well, they don't appreciate all the times I actually do put effort in, or I actually do this. And it really weighs on you, and you don't want to do it anymore. You don't want to do anything. So if there's something that bothers you, don't use the you always sentence or you never do this. Express it clearly, explain it, as you would to your friend, to anyone, and wait for what they do in return once you've given your expectations and communicated it. Then we have the ability to judge a little bit and to see, okay, are they focusing on my needs in a balanced way? Are they doing what they can to make me feel good without these crazy expectations that social media or other people might have given me? Expectations that are fair to my own relationship. And then, you can decide if that person is not meant for you, if they're not doing enough for you, or if you want to continue, communicating and fixing things in your relationship. Okay. But if he wanted to, he would is kind of not my favorite, because if anything, it makes me feel bad, because I feel like it makes me be too judgmental on people, especially when you're hard on yourself. It's very easy to project and to be hard on other people. And I think I fall in that category. All right, my next piece of bad advice, and this one, honestly, I just think is bad all around. I don't think it's to a certain extent bad, like the other ones. This one is work hard now so you can rest later. I've never understood it. Truly, I've never understood it, because I think with that mindset, you are burning away so much time where you can be present in your life and where you can spend time with your family, your friends, make plans, go on trips, relax a little bit. And you'll look back and realize that you missed out on a lot of opportunities that weren't work related, and that might fulfill you more than this work related situation. People who are extremely hyper focused on money in their careers, my therapist actually taught me, and there's a word for this, which I'm not going to be able to remember, but it comes from a place of lack within their own childhood, where they never felt like they were good enough. So their only way to show that they're good enough in their adult life is to over succeed and achieve in their careers. So in this sense, I think working and grinding your ass off for the next 10 to 15 years and, taking time away from your family and friends, saying no to hanging out with them, saying no to enjoying and resting and whatever it might be, just for the sole purpose and sake of being able to work your hardest to make as much money as possible so that you can retire early, retire at, 30, 40, and be able to relax after the fact, is crazy to me. Because when you're 30 and when you're 40, your parents are going to be what? In their 70s? Like, that is so frightening to me. Like, you miss some of the most important, like, character building experiences, learning, growth. And when it comes to, grinding your ass off for so-and-so amount of years, that also means that you're probably rejecting any type of relationship that might be coming your way, even if you are in a relationship and that person's not going to feel like you have any time or space for them. And I just can't imagine what it's like to be that person in a relationship. That must be terrible. So it's all about balance at the end of the day. It's about being able to find time for both, and also not putting so much pressure on succeeding and achieving these huge goals so that you can retire at a certain age, because sometimes it's just not possible, guys. Like, I made a whole episode about being okay with a mundane, boring life, And that means being okay with simplicity, being okay with, not having this extravagant, crazy lifestyle, and being more honed in on the present moment, the things that you have, not the things that you want, and not being so hyper fixated on the grind mentality. This next one kind of has something to do with the last one that I said, but a bad piece of advice that I think that is a little bit, has its truth to it, but also that I think is a little bit not necessary, is say yes to every opportunity. I think that sometimes you just don't need to. Like, we all have this FOMO, basically, fear of missing out. And that could be fear of missing out from a good time, from a fun event, from something exciting happening, but it could also be missing out from a lot of money or a way to excel in your career, or just anything in general. Anything that you feel like will excel your life, I think, would be considered an opportunity. So feeling like you need to say yes to everything that has to do with excelling is such a scary way to live. It's like you don't ever have the opportunity to say no in terms of, okay, I'm just not feeling it. Like, that should be a good enough reason to say no to things. And I know people that are yes men, that are like, yes, 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 I'll do everything, every opportunity, every situation, yes. And what it does is it burns you out. It makes you feel like you have no energy left for yourself because you're consistently saying yes to anything that comes your way because you want to be open to any opportunity being able to excel you, further you in your life. And although it is a very good mindset to be open to things, it's also good to be selective about what you choose to do, because sometimes not everything aligns with who you are. So you can't always have that mentality of like, yes, I'll take it and I'll figure it out. I'll take it and I'll see if I like it. I'll take it and I'll because sometimes it's a waste of freaking time. Don't feel this pressure to constantly level up and then have to say yes to every opportunity. The last piece of advice that I think is just dookie advice is to cut out everyone in your life who doesn't align with you. Gosh, I don't even know how many times I've heard this in my life, but it's like everyone seems to have this fixation on getting rid of the people who don't align, getting rid of the ones who, are not meant to be anymore. And okay, by all means, I'm not saying keep these shitty people in your life. Trust me, I'm not saying that. But when it comes to more so of like your friends, I don't think you need to be throwing people away left, right, center. What I mean by this is the second you get into a disagreement, the second you don't have the same views on certain things, the second there is conflict that arises, you immediately pack up your bags and you're like, see ya, you weren't worth it anyways, gotta go. I knew it would end like this. I think that there is a lot of like trauma associated with trying to get rid of people in your life. And I've seen it before. I know people who are like this, and I always sit there and I'm like, are you really just gonna give up on someone that easily? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. Like, it doesn't, I don't know. Like, as I reflect on this piece of advice, I'm also thinking like, okay, maybe I'm the type of person that forgives and keeps people around a little bit too long, but I also think I've learned my lesson in that situation. So maybe I'm a little bit more level-headed on it, but I don't know. I think that there's so much that you could be wrong about in the heat of the moment that it's not as easy as just cutting someone off and never looking back. Because to me, it feels like a lot of missed opportunity for growth. Like if your mindset is not bigger in a sense of, okay, who is right and who is wrong? Like if you divide that right away and you're like, hey, they were in the wrong here. They don't align with me. They're not my people. They're not my person anymore. Like, you might miss the chance to learn where you went wrong, what you did in the situation that you could grow from. And not giving that person another chance and or forgiving them might stop you from the ability to like do that in your life. If it's a pattern for you to consistently drop people and cut people out of your life, you need to take a second and reflect on if they are the problem or if it's you. Because I always think about that when you see people going in and out of relationships and or in and out of like friendships, and I'm always like, well, damn, like they must not have the capability to keep a solid friendship going. Like there's something that has to be incorrect there. You know, like there has to be a level of like the ego's too big or something like that. So yeah, guys, as I close off this episode, I feel a bit nervous. Not nervous, but like I'm just thinking to myself, was this the worst episode ever? And did it make any sense? Do you know what I mean? Sometimes I end off and I feel like that. I can't lie. Sometimes I'm like, damn, did this even hit? I guess we'll see. Let me know in the comments. Let me know if you disagree with me. I'm obviously open to disagreements. I'm open to other sides of the coin. For the most part, the initial piece of advice for all of these, like they have their truth, but I agree with the latter point more. Okay, I love you guys. I'm going to go and I'm going to enjoy my day. I hope you guys do too. And I'll talk to you in the very last episode, which I don't have planned yet and I have no idea what it's going to be. Love you.